Welcome back. High energy costs and alleged overpricing of raw materials are threatening the country's packaging industry. The sector is potentially an important job creator, with a total value of around 60 billion rand, representing 2% of GDP. It is capable of successfully competing in global markets.
The packaging sector is divided into four main categories: paper, plastic, metal and glass. It's important as it leads the product from the shelves to the consumer's home. But in the past decade, it has seen significant changes.
It's been an interesting change in the last 10 to 15 years, because previously packaging was tracking above GDP. But as the advent of cell phones, security expenses and other expenses came in, we had what we call termed structural changes that occurred, and so consumers spent relatively less on packaging, which is translated to the packaging industry now performing at slightly below GDP.
Packaging materials are produced and manufactured locally from local materials. Hence, this sector is better poised to create jobs. People who collect packaging materials for recycling can get up to R2.20 per kilogram. While this may not seem like much, it is a lot to people who would otherwise struggle to survive.
There's certainly a lot of value in it, and we're very pleased that the government has recognized packaging as a sector and a growth sector and a sector in terms of employment opportunities. And so we're working very closely together to look at those opportunities in terms of using technology, but also to create opportunities in terms of employment.
Like many other manufacturers, packaging companies also find themselves in difficult positions. This has been highlighted by a case now before the Competition Tribunal. Some plastic manufacturers say Sasol Chemicals charges excessive prices for materials used in the production of plastics. This, in turn, makes it difficult for them to compete effectively.
With exports, there is lots of opportunity for South African industry, both the paper and packaging industry. And if you take the statistics, 25% of what we produce in South Africa in the packaging industry gets exported. And I think that says something for our capability in South Africa, that we can export both paper and packaging.
Other key challenges include cost inflation pressures, but energy remains the biggest threat.
The significant hikes that have come through have impacted the production costs significantly. I think fuel costs are even bigger, because raw material gets trucked into a particular plant and finished products gets trucked out of that plant to another plant, which is then filled with the end product into the packaging, and that gets trucked off to a retailer or to a distribution center or DC. And so I think the cost of fuel is significant in terms of its rising.
With the challenges that manufacturers face, are these costs eventually passed on to the consumer?
When one looks at the final selling price that a consumer or a shopper would pay, the relative cost of the packaging is significantly low. You know, it can range from a couple of single-digit percentages upwards, but there's not a hard and fast rule as to what percentage that may be. But I think it's fair. I think because of the fact that the industry, the packaging suppliers are selling to brand owners, who in turn are selling to retailers, who in turn are selling to consumers who are cash strapped, there's definitely not going to be space for anyone to absorb overpriced packaging.
Packaging has a critical role to play across the entire value chain and in establishing food security, which is a global issue. Developed countries have a lower record of product waste of about 3%. This is much lower compared to that of developing countries of around 40%. Experts say South Africa can take advantage of the sector by improving its infrastructure in order to reduce product waste. Diabo Seto, SABC News, Johannesburg.